You ever head out on a family camping trip thinking you've thought of everything? Every box ticked, every strap pulled tight, every list double-checked, and still end up dangling off the side of your truck wondering where it all went wrong? Yeah, that's this story. We were about 3 cups of coffee deep into a chilly Friday morning when I stood out on the driveway, arms crossed, surveying the truck like a general inspecting his troops. The canopy gleamed, freshly hosed down, and mounted on top, our brand new rooftop tent. Bought it 2 weeks ago, watched every tutorial twice. That thing was strapped on tighter than my budget after Christmas. Sarah was inside packing the last of the snacks and checking off the food list for the 3rd time. She'd already run back in twice, once for bug spray and once for Max's favorite bedtime storybook. Kid couldn't sleep without hearing the truck. That got stuck at least twice. The kids were buzzing like a pair of soda-fueled bees. Emma ran out of the house carrying her pink hoodie and a half-eaten banana. "Dad, I packed my rock collection. Can I bring it? We're going to a place full of rocks." "Em, you sure you want to lug extra?" She gave me that serious 8-year-old squint of hers, the one that says, "Don't question my life choices, old man." She tossed it in the back seat without another word. Max followed behind her, baseball cap on backwards and gumboots, already tracking mud up the driveway. Never mind, it hadn't rained at our place in a week. "I got my truck," he shouted, holding up a battered toy excavator, "and I packed my lucky rock, too." "You're sure it's lucky, huh?" "Yup. Didn't fall off the roof last time." "Fair point." We rolled out just before 8:30 a.m. Sarah had the GPS going. I had the playlist running, mostly songs the kids liked. Something about bananas and pancakes. 2 hours in, I managed to sneak in one Johnny Cash song before being vetoed by the peanut gallery. The kids sang the chorus of Baby Shark louder than the actual speakers. I grinned and gritted my teeth at the same time. It's hard to stay mad when your daughter belts out doo-doo-doo-doo like it's an anthem and your son's using his toy truck as a microphone. "Are we there yet?" Max asked for the first time an hour in. "Not yet, bud." "Couple more to go?" "How many is a couple?" "More than one, fewer than too many." "That's not a number. It is when you're the one driving." Sarah laughed, gave Miney a quick squeeze. That's the thing about road trips. Either get closer as a family or slowly unravel to the point where someone ends up walking. The road got worse about 80 kilometers out. We passed a road slippery when wet sign just as the first tire kissed mud. It had rained hard the day before, one of those dumpings where you could hear the gutters drowning. We'd checked the weather and gambled. Forecast said sun. Forecast also said light drizzle the day my cousin's wedding got rained out in a monsoon. The mud didn't just coat the road, it owned it. Our 4x4 handled most of it fine, but there was one stretch that looked more like pudding than path. I took it slow, knuckles tight on the wheel. "Do we have to go through that?" Sarah asked, peering ahead. "Unless you want to hike the last 6 miles carrying the kids and half the cooler." The truck dipped into the mud with a thick schlop, and all 4 of us let out involuntary grunts, like we'd just sat on cold toilet seats, thought about halfway through that pit. The rear tire spun once, caught nothing, and slid to the right. Max shouted, "Wee!" like it was a theme park ride. Emma shrieked with joy and grabbed the grab handle above her window. "Henry," Sarah started. I got it! I got it!" I dropped into low gear, eased off the pedal, then coaxed it, gently like I was talking a cat. "Out from under a bed? Come on, baby," I muttered to the steering wheel. "Don't let these kids see me call roadside assistance." With a gritty growl, the tires bit down into something solid and we lurched forward. Flinging a wave of mud in all directions, Max whooped. Again. "Again. Next time I'll let you drive," I said, wiping sweat off my brow. We reached the turn-off to the campgrounds by late afternoon. The sign for Stone Pine Wilderness Reserve swung lazily on one hinge, squeaking in the wind. It was tucked between 2 pine-covered hills, the kind of place you only hear about from friends who say things like, "It's rustic, but worth it." The office was a little cabin near the gate. We checked in with a woman named Denise who wore socks with sandals and had a voice like she'd smoked 1,000 campfires. "You're in spot 17, she said, pointing at a faded map. "Corner spot? Good drainage?" I nodded. Drainage sounded important considering the road we just swam through. "Tents on the truck?" she asked. "Yeah, rooftop. First time using it." "Well, let's hope it's better than the last guy's." He knocked a squirrel out of a tree, opening his... I laughed nervously. Back in the truck, Sarah gave me a look that said, "Don't be that guy. It'll be fine," I said, more to myself than anyone else. The kids, now practically vibrating, started chanting, "Mud, mud, mud. We're here. To camp, not to star in a swamp documentary," I said. But I knew full well those kids were going to be muddy from scalp to soles within 10 minutes. I rolled down the window and took a deep breath. The forest air smelled of pine, damp earth, and wet bark. The kind of smell that settles in your lungs and tells your bones you're somewhere peaceful. I thought we had it all figured out, and that's exactly when everything decided to go sideways. Now, if you've ever spent more than 5 minutes putting up a new tent, you already know the moment of truth is when you pull that first strap loose. That little pop sound can mean either sweet success or absolute disaster. For me, it meant falling off a truck canopy with my dignity wrapped around my ankle. We finally pulled into Site 17, tires crunching on a bed of damp pine needles and gravel. The truck slid a bit to the left before settling into the muddy clearing. The rain from the day before had turned the whole place into a soggy wonderland. Sarah stepped out, boots hitting the ground with a dull squelch. She glanced around and gave me a small nod. "It's nice," she said, "secluded and muddy. The kids are going to love it." Right on cue, Emma and Max burst from the back seat like they'd been launched from a cannon. Max hit the mud-first full foot plant, squeal of delight, immediate splatter. Emma followed close behind, arms out like a plane, splashing through every puddle like it was her sworn duty. No jumping in the eye started, but Emma cut me off, mid-sentence with a victorious belly flop into a shallow trench of brown slop. Sarah laughed behind her hand. "They're happy?" she shrugged. "They're filthy," I grunted. "Happy and filthy. That's childhood." I walked around to the back of the truck, inspecting our rooftop tent. It still looked solid, straps tight, canvas neat, nothing flapping in the breeze. I grabbed the aluminum handle, climbed onto the rear wheel, then onto the bed. Up here, things felt elevated and peaceful. The forest stretched out in every direction. Mist curling through the trees like the woods were breathing. Somewhere in the distance, a bird let out a high-pitched weet-weet, and I could hear the wind tugging gently at the canopy. I reached down, unclipped the first strap, thunk, dot, then the second dot, snap, dot. All good so far. I grabbed the locking lever where the manual said it'd be pulled, dot, and then the whole damn tent slid clean off the canopy and hit the ground with a sound like a soggy accordion getting drop-kicked off a roof. I just stood there, blinking. Sarah called, trying not to laugh. "Did you just throw our tent off the truck?" "It jumped," I muttered. Emma burst into laughter. Max raised both fists in the air like I'd just scored a goal. "Dad killed the tent. It's not dead," I said, climbing down fast. "It's just escaping." I knelt beside it, inspecting the damage. The hinges were fine. The frame had popped loose from the mounts, nothing snapped, just pulled out under the wrong pressure. It was fixable. Heavy, awkward, maddening, but fixable. Sarah was behind me now, hands on her hips, shaking her head. "Didn't you say you watched 3 YouTube tutorials?" "I did, and I read the manual." "Huh, maybe the tent didn't." She knelt beside me and helped lift the side. The thing was slick with wet dirt and pine needles. As we heaved it up, I looked past her and saw Max trying to belly slide through a puddle. Emma was making mud pies with strict quality control standards. They're having the time of their lives. I said, "Yeah? Meanwhile, you're mud wrestling a tent. At least someone's enjoying themselves." About 20 minutes into wrestling the frame back into place, a blue SUV pulled up beside our truck. I figured it was another camper coming to say hello, maybe even offer a hand. Nope, a wiry guy in his late 50s hopped out, khaki shorts too short for public view, and an expression that said he'd just swallowed a lemon. This is Site 17, right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, sweat dripping into my eyes. "I booked Site 17. So did I." He pulled out his phone and flicked through a few emails. I did the same, holding mine up. Both emails, same date, same site, .double-booked. I stared at the screen, hoping it would blink and correct itself like some kind of magic trick. "You gonna move your stuff?" he asked flatly. "I just spent 45 minutes chasing my tent across this mud pit," I said. "Not really." In a moving mood, Sarah stepped in, cool as a breeze. "We'll call the front office," she said. "They'll sort it." We did call. Denise, back at the office, was terribly sorry. "New software," she said. "Hiccups, ya know." She offered another site right down by the stream, but the sun had started to dip behind the trees, the light dimming, and the temperature dropping, and then the clouds rolled back in. The first drop hit my shoulder with a soft plink, then another dot. In under a minute, the sky opened up like it had a grudge. Sarah pulled her hood up. Emma and Max danced in circles like rain was made of sugar. I stood there, soaked, one hand still holding the tent's bent frame, the other now gripping the edge of my patience. The other camper turned back to his SUV and drove off toward his new site. I looked at Sarah, who looked at me. "Hotel?" she asked. "Hotel." We packed up the mud-caked tent, half-folded, half-dragged, and tossed it in the truck bed. The kids climbed in, soaking wet, and somehow still happy. Emma started humming some tune from a cartoon, Max echoing her with off-key glee back on the road, windshield wipers squeaking their rhythm. I took one last look in the rearview mirror as the campground disappeared into the trees. "You think the tent's cursed?" I asked. "No," Sarah said. "I think you are." I snorted. "At least we'll get a hot shower. And clean sheets. And a mattress that won't try to slide off the roof." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "It's still our week in hen. We'll make it work." That night, we checked into a hotel just outside the town. Nothing fancy, low roof, loud carpet, but it was dry and warm. The staff were friendly, and one guy at the front desk used to install rooftop tents. Said he'd help us remount it in the morning. The kids jumped on the hotel beds until they passed out. Sarah and I collapsed on opposite sides of the room, wet socks drying on the heater. Trying not to laugh too loud, despite everything, it already felt like a weekend we'd never forget. Some weekends try their hardest to break you, but if you hang in there, if you laugh when things get messy, and trust me, they will, those weekends somehow become the ones you remember most. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Max whisper singing, the wheels on the bus, from somewhere under the hotel blanket. Emma was already out of bed, sitting cross-legged by the window with a juice box in one hand and binoculars in the other. Scanning the parking lot like she was on safari, Sarah was up to packing sandwiches into Tupperware. Like we were heading off to climb Everest instead of reinstall a rogue tent. I stretched, rubbed the back of my neck, and peeked outside. The rain had stopped. Gray clouds still hung around, but there was a flicker of blue sky peeking through the east, like morning was trying to reassure me things would go better today. And you know what? For once, it did dot down in the parking lot. The hotel manager, Meek, a wiry guy with a goatee and permanently dirty hands, was already waiting beside the truck with a tool roll under one arm and a greasy smile on his face. "You're the one who tried to launch a tent into orbit," he said, grinning. "Not my proudest engineering moment," I muttered. "No worries. Let's get her back on." It took less than an hour. With Mick holding the frame and me bolting down the brackets, we got the rooftop tent reinstalled solid and tight. This time, we double-checked the supports and locked every hinge down like we were prepping for a hurricane. "That thing ain't going nowhere now," Mick said, brushing his hands. "Try to launch it again, and it'll take the truck with it." "Perfect," I said. "At least then we'd all go down together." By 10:30, we were back at Stone Pine Wilderness Reserve. Same winding dirt road. Same slippery when wet. Same trees whispering in the breeze like they were gossiping about us. Denise had upgraded us to Site 21, up on a small hill overlooking the stream. It wasn't as secluded, but it had a view and, most importantly, a wide patch of dry, packed ground for the tent. This time, when I popped the lever, the tent did exactly what it was supposed to. No flinging, no sliding. Just a satisfying click as it unfolded into position like a well-behaved machine. I climbed down, fists on hips, like I'd just conquered Everest. "We're up," gave a mock bow, all hail the tent master. "No autographs, please." The rest of that day felt like a reward. Max and Emma spent the afternoon building what they proudly called Mud City, a sprawling network of little canals and muddy huts, complete with stick flags and rock bridges. They were so into it, they barely stopped for snacks. Sarah found a dry log near the fire ring and pulled out her book, reading and keeping one eye on the kids while sipping coffee from an enamel mug that said, "Not all who wander are lost." Across the side, I, meanwhile, collected kindling, set up chairs, and finally allowed myself to settle in. The sounds were different now. Less chaos. More rhythm. The wind rustled gently through the trees. A woodpecker knocked somewhere off in the distance. The stream below gurgled softly like it was humming to itself. At Mud City, and Sarah chuckling quietly to herself, by late afternoon, the sky had opened up. No rain this time, just sun pouring through breaks in the clouds. Casting golden stripes through the pines, we roasted marshmallows that night. Kids got more on their faces than on their sticks. Max managed to set one on fire and then panicked and flung it into the bushes like it was a live grenade. Emma was showing off her perfect golden brown, not burnt technique like she was applying for a cooking show. "Look, Daddy," she said proudly, holding it up. "This one's mine. You want it. If I say no, do I sleep on the ground?" "Yup, then I love it." Sarah leaned against me, head on my shoulder, her hair smelling like smoke and vanilla. We watched the fire crackle, listened to the soft laughter of our kids, and for the first time that weekend, I felt ... peaceful. Like maybe all the rain and the mud and the ridiculous tent episode was just the price of admission to this exact moment. That night, as we climbed up into the tent and zipped up the canvas flap, I lay on my back. Fighting their way through the haze, Max curled up next to me like a puppy, thumb in his mouth, still gripping his toy truck. Emma lay beside Sarah, muttering in half-sleep about mud castles and dragons. "You did good," Sarah whispered. "I almost killed a tent." "Yeah," she smiled, "but you brought us back." We fell asleep to the sound of frogs singing somewhere. Below, the gentle drip of water off the trees and the steady, contented breathing of two kids who thought mud was better than Disneyland. The rest of the weekend stayed smooth. Really good. We cooked over the fire, took short hikes through damp trails, played card games under a tarp when it rained again, and dried socks over branches like makeshift laundry lines. A stick. I watched Emma and Max stomp through puddles like they were testing the depth of the universe. I watched Sarah laugh in the rain. I watched my family thrive in the middle of a weekend that had, by every account, tried to fall apart. On the last morning, as we packed up the truck tent, folding down without protest, kids still wet and happy, stood for a moment at the edge of the clearing. Looking out across the trees and the stream and the muddy little empire we'd built, that I wasn't thinking about the hotel bill or the bruised ego or even the fact that I'd probably have to spend a full day cleaning the undercarriage of the truck. I was just thinking how grateful I was that I didn't go through it alone. I turned back to Sarah, who was tossing the last camp chair into the back, and smiled. Thank goodness my family was with me. She smiled back. You would have been fine, just wetter, angrier, and probably sleeping in a broken tent. She wasn't wrong. We pulled out of the campsite, the tires once again crunching over gravel and pine needles. The kids sang in the back seat, slightly off-key, slightly too loud. For the first time that weekend, nothing went wrong, not even a little.